Speaking of Tyranids, getting into game 1 of this best-of-3 series, spawning in the lower left-hand corner of Alcyone, the race heavily inspired by the Tyranids. It is our Zerg player for Talon, Dark. And his opponent in the upper right-hand corner. This race influenced by the Eldari. It is Bleed Esports' NightMare. Playing Protoss, of course. Some say that Blizzard had initially been contracted to make a Warhammer 40k game. And then that contract broke off, but they had the start of some of the races, and that's where they started with StarCraft. And that's why there are many similarities between StarCraft and Warhammer 40k, because they had essentially a Tyranid and an Eldari race. And Marines are basically Ultramarines. A lot of similarities. Eldari. Yeah, there we go. We got it. We could just call them the Eldar, but that's less exciting. That makes them sound like elves. Do I consider Drukhari as a subsect of the Eldari or a subsect of Slaanesh? I genuinely, Porphyrion, have no idea. I do not even in the slightest care. My knowledge of lore is basically none at all. I don't know. I've read a couple of things on a Wikipedia page, and that's about the extent of the lore I know for Warhammer 40k. Honestly, what dragged me into playing and trying to set up an army was that playing was a lot of fun. I played with Apop's, or I played against Apop with Krunk's army. And it was just a lot of fun. I just really enjoyed the tactical strategic setting up of units, and learning about all the different units was really interesting. It was a lot like playing a new RTS, but I mean, it's turn-based and with real models. It was a lot of fun. A lot more fun than I had expected it to be, honestly. But the lore is so deep and thick that I just decided not to worry about it. I care as much about the 40k lore as I do about the StarCraft lore. Which is to say, very little. Very little. Not at all. I enjoy having a little bit of lore. 40k is just... there's maybe too much lore. You know what I mean? I feel like maybe they overdid it on the lore. When it's okay, to get a basic understanding of the lore, read these 3 books. 3 books? To get a basic understanding? Maybe a couple Wikipedia pages should give you a basic understanding of the lore, you know? The StarCraft lore is a great example of a simplified version of the 40k lore. NightMare trying to get some drone damage here. Dark doing a good job pulling drones away, saves that one. Does lose a couple, but kills both of the adepts. And the Oracle just kind of chilling for now, so... Void Ray gets set home. It looks like NightMare is playing this pretty standard so far. Twilight Council and Forge on the way up. I imagine there'll be a Blink follow-up here. Oh my god, he ran out of juice. Oh no, he didn't run out of juice. He gets it. Got the Creep Tumor. And Dark is going to put down a Roach Hornet and Evo Chamber as his lair is about halfway done. Interesting. Could be a cheeky +1 Roach speed timing here if you wanted to go for that. I know that that Games Workshop would never do this because it would be detrimental to their model selling business. But I really feel like after playing Baldur's Gate 3, which is, you know, it's obviously Dungeons and Dragons, but it's turn-based combat. After playing that, I am so convinced that if they did like a high-quality graphics, turn-based like strategy game with Warhammer 40K and like really went big on it like Baldur's Gate did, you know, a lot of story, a lot of interaction, a lot of that lore baked into it, I think you could have a really, really sick Warhammer 40K game that is very similar to the tabletop game, maybe some differences, but like honestly like an XCOM kind of thing. You know, that turn-based percentages and distances really mattering. I feel like you could have a really, really cool 40K game. And I know there is a 40K strategy game. But like having watched it, it looks pretty lame. I think they could do better. Stalker's coming across now. +1 finishing a little bit late in this fight, but Roach is starting to push them away. Roach speed is about to finish. +1 a little bit after that here for Dark, but Roach speed's going to allow him to chase this away. He's going to get on top of a few of these Stalkers, too. We're just kind of trading Stalkers for Roaches, which usually going to be good for Dark here, who is up quite a bit of supply. This base gets to stay alive. It gets to start mining. And it looks like, yeah, Dark's going to go ahead and take it. He's actually going to double expand down to this side of the map. NightMare's also expanding down here, so Dark, it might behoove him to break down some of these rocks. I actually wouldn't even hate to see him send a drone over here to mine these two out, just to get that started. But yeah, I think he's gonna want to do that at some point. NightMare, though, doing a good job keeping the pressure on, just clearing some creep, keeping these roaches to the north side where they're not going to really be able to deal with that. And that could be something we see pose a problem for Dark later on. I say it a lot, rocks are the enemy of the Zerg. You really want to be able to react, especially with this kind of style that Dark's going for. He's getting straight into the lair, the hive, rather. Going straight to lurkers. He's not being aggressive this game. He's feeling confident in his late game ability against NightMare. But you want to be able to react the moment you see something on your creep. You want to get there as fast as possible. And rocks usually don't let you do that. Not to mention the fact that two of his bases are on this bottom side of the map, this bottom corridor, which is pretty separated from the rest. You know, he's mined these minerals out, but if his army's out here and he needs to get down here, that is a far trip if these rocks are not broken. But NightMare, he's going to keep that aggression going. He's got double Colossus production right now. Thermal Lance has just started, so it is a while before those Colossi are really strong. And that could be a bit of a problem here as the lurkers are already morphing. There are 7 of them morphing right now, but the hive's not done yet, so no Vipers. So those Colossi can still be very useful for the next couple of minutes here. But right now, this is just Stalkers. Ooh, they need to not walk up that ramp. 29 Stalkers here. The Colossi are going to be here short range for now, but still very annoying to deal with. And yeah, I mean, this is kind of part of the problem I was talking about here, right? Like, NightMare's going to take advantage of the choke point there at the gold base. Hard for Dark to engage. Dark's just going to sacrifice that base and secure these other ones, keeping the lurkers back where they're a little more safe. The lurkers also don't have their range. So as Thermal Lance finishes here in a minute, the Colossi will actually outrange the lurkers for a little bit. Not the biggest deal in the world. They don't usually do like a ton of damage to lurkers, but makes these engagements a little bit nicer for NightMare for the time being. And he's doing a good job keeping Dark back right now. But I feel like the problem is he's not getting a ton of damage done. If we look at the trades back and forth, yeah, he's trading decently, but he's just not killing a lot, right? Ooh, this is kind of nice, though, as I say that. Thermal Lance finishing up. Getting a couple extra swipes on those Hydras. I really like NightMare's continued aggression here. making it very difficult for Dark to get that tech out that he really wants. Vipers here would be so sick. It turns out he doesn't even need him. He just walks forward and kills a Colossus. Bit of mismicro there from NightMare, keeping those Colossi out so far. Does he have any more coming out? No, he literally, he got double Robo and then just built 2. And now he is going super Maz Zealots. 22 Zealots out on the field. He's going to send those forward. There are a couple of Lurkers here, but they're going to get killed immediately. And Dark, the rest of his Lurkers are super far out of position. Well, he's going to try to pincer move this. The Lurkers over here not being spotted. Lurkers on the backside. Lurkers going to push this back with the Roaches, Hydras, and all of these Ling reinforcements coming out. He is going to knock NightMare way back out here, but those supplies are very, very close. And Dark, while he is holding on, NightMare, he's going to go ahead and take another expansion. Dark going for the upper left base. I think the big problem here for NightMare is what is his follow-up tech? He's got a mothership on the way, so there is a fleet beacon around. But I was just going to say, no Templar Archives here I feel like is a bit of a problem. At some point, I imagine Dark is going to be able to get some Vipers out. And this army is going to be a lot weaker if just a couple of Blinding Clouds go down or a yoink on the Colossus. Right now, Dark is just trying to stay alive, but as we see, when there's a moment of rest, Dark is in a much better spot. NightMare's still just kind of moving around. He hasn't sent anything up to this base. I don't think he's thought about this base just yet. He does have an observer up here, but not quite spotting the base. Dark going for a big run by right now, and this is actually going to be kind of awkward for NightMare. It looks like he's going to try to come home and defend this, but he's very disjointed. He has to be super careful. Going for a recall on the mothership to get the Zealots back over while the Stalkers and Colossus show up. There's the cloaking field. Ooh, and these Lurkers are going to be caught between a rock and a hard place here. They're going to go ahead and try to burrow down here and kill a couple of these Zealots, but not particularly ideal. 2 of them go down. However, Dark going to use this as an opportunity to move into the 3rd base with the rest of his Lurkers. Quite a few Lurkers here. Mothership has already used all of its spells, so now it's just kind of a floating mid-range amount of damage. Colossus goes down. There is a carrier out, but it looks like it's just a single carrier. Storm is still not done, and NightMare is getting caught with his pants down here. No Storm, 1 carrier, plus 1 isn't done, and Dark is going to get a victory here. NightMare not quick enough on that extra follow-up tech, and also I think trying to do too many things at once. You know, Storm being very late, the High Templar being very late, meant that they're hitting at the same time as like the first carrier and the mothership. And those are so expensive. I've said it before and I will say it again. 1 carrier is actually worse than no carriers there. Because if NightMare hadn't built that carrier, he could have built like a few more Stalkers or something. Like an Archon and some Zealots. Yeah, any of that would have been better than 1 carrier. Everything's too quiet in my headphones. I gotta turn them up a little bit. I can't hear my own voice enough. I have to be able to hear my own voice. You'd like to know how many obs died in that game? I should have checked. Sorry, I didn't see that till after. It was a few, though. I noticed at least 2 dying. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was more than that. We're going to Ghost River for game number 2. Very interesting map choice for a best of 3. I feel like I wouldn't expect to see Ghost River here, but I actually see this map more often than I expect to, and I feel like it's because Dark likes how weird it is. Spawning the upper right-hand corner of Ghost River, we do have, in fact, Dark, the 2019 World Champion. Notably left off the TeamLiquid.net greatest of all time list. in favor of other players like Rain, who maybe didn't need to be on there. His opponent in the upper left-hand corner, well known as the first player to build Shadow Stride in a professional game of StarCraft, it is NightMare. Yeah, Dark does love this map. So one of Dark's main game plans is to put his opponent in a weird spot. Some players are really good at that. Dark is one of them, right? That's why we see him do like early roaches or even just 12 pools, proxy hatches. He'll do the hatch in the wall or the hatch here to block the base, or even the hatch outside to get some spines going. We've seen him do all sorts of crazy stuff. He likes to throw off the pace of the game. And I think especially for a player like NightMare, who is very strong in a standard game, but I think does struggle a little bit more if the game gets a little wonky, a little weird. You know, if Dark can throw him off, put him in a weird spot where he's not exactly sure what the state of the game is, it's going to be really good for Dark. Dark is very much he plays on vibes, you know? He has really, really good star sense, figuring out where he is in the game, where his opponent is in the game, what weird little things he might be able to do to get an edge. He'll make units that a lot of other players wouldn't necessarily think are good in a certain setting, but they become good precisely because they're not good. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the player Dark is in a lot of ways. And he can play himself a good standard game. I actually think last game is a great example of Dark just playing like pretty standard Zerg. But also, like, that win wasn't as strong as a lot of his wins are. And I think it's because NightMare was kind of just allowed to do what he wanted to do. And so NightMare put himself in a really good spot. But this map is weird, and weird stuff happens on it. And I think that's just like a flat out good thing for Dark. So I'm not surprised he picks this map against somebody like NightMare. Against Hero, I would think maybe not this map, but I don't know. He picks it against him too, so. You would have put Dark top 6 if it were up to you. It's tough. When you're talking about the greatest of all time, it's really, really difficult in StarCraft. The game has changed so much in the 14 years that StarCraft 2 has existed. It's changed a lot. I think it's been very consistent the last... since Legacy of the Void, I think it's been very consistent. Obviously, a lot of things have changed, but like in terms of the strengths and weaknesses of the players who are the best at any given point, I feel like this game has been very consistent the last 8 years. But yeah, this game just, it changes like crazy. And that's a problem in like sports too, like traditional sports. They'll talk about, oh, so-and-so is the greatest of all time, but like, yeah, Wayne Gretzky might have absolutely blown everybody else out of the water in terms of statistics, like hockey statistics. But the game was very different back then than it is now. You know, things change even in traditional sports. So it becomes really difficult to measure players against each other when they played in different times. That being said, Dark, I mean, you know, he was the world champion in 2019, and while there were some some things that were really good for Zerg at that time, maybe a little bit overpowered, I don't know. He looked pretty unstoppable. It was really only Serral that could have taken him out at that point. And Raynor was able to knock Serral out of that tournament, that BlizzCon. But Dark has been very consistently very strong since then. However, he doesn't often reach the top. I feel like we see him in a lot of top 4s, even a lot of finals, but not necessarily winning, right? That being said, he's trying to get to the finals here, this KSL right now. That's what he's focused on. And he's got Queenslings and Ravagers running across this map. NightMare, of course, knows this is coming, but eats a little bit of a bile there. He's going to pop one of the Ravagers, but loses an Oracle for it as they fly a little bit too close to to the sun, to these queens. Adept's going to try to hold on, but Dark just ignoring the third base for now. Trying to bust into the natural. Ooh, and he catches the Adepts. Getting a little bit too far out here. Fully surrounded. And NightMare's in a lot of trouble. The army supply telling a big story right now. As the Ling starts streaming through, Super Shield Battery is turned on. It's going to try to heal this Cyber Core up. Oracle turns on once again, just try to help out against a few of these Lings, but there's no more Force Fields. There's no more Shield Battery energy. The Cyber Core is dead. The wall is gone, and I think NightMare is going to be out of here. It looks like Dark is going to be able to make his way to yet another KSL Grand Finals as he just breaks his way in here. Hold the phone. There's a Dark Shrine. DT's warping in. It's not going to matter, guys. There's a lair morphing at home. There's spore crawlers at home. These DTs can like kill some stuff in the meantime, but I don't think 3 DTs are actually going to like fully stop this from just doing irreparable damage to NightMare's base. If he can kill the natural and the third here, I think Dark's just going to be in an unlosable spot. NightMare tends to agree, so he is going to go ahead and tap out. The DT's almost holding it, but maybe a little bit too late for him there. GG.